Hey, Vinny Melkus Outdoors, coming down you from the truck. Every so often, every year or two, something rears its ugly head in tournament fishing. And it puts a stain on it. It shows you that they're not, every fisherman is a person of character or virtue. That is cheating. Cheating in tournaments from the local level all the way up to the professional level. Now, we've seen in the past, excuse me, the one that I'm always reminded of is the U.S. Open, when I can't even remember the guy's name, but he got caught stuffing weights in fish. And what has recently happened and is being, promulgated, the video around social media, is the two walleye fishermen, which, I fish for walleye. I haven't fished a walleye tournament. I fished pike tournaments, or here and there just for fun, and mainly bass, just like most of you guys. But the professional walleye league, that's a pretty big deal, especially up north. And those guys, they pull some really big sponsor dollars. You're talking about their rigs compared to like the bass guys. Some of their rigs are in excess of 100K once you put everything together. It's unbelievable. They're big boats, and there's a lot into it. Well, this one, I believe, is some kind of championship on Lake Erie, and the gentleman, they're not even really in question. I would say alleged, but there's video of it, and it's really tough to defend this from contrarian perspective. This is inexplicable. I've never seen anything so blatant. Like the cheating event that I remember the U.S. Open, I think it was a couple fish with little 1 ounce weights or whatever. This is unbelievable. What these guys did. Well, anyway, so apparently they won this tournament, and I think in this tournament you could eat your fish, which sometimes the walleye tournaments or the pike ones, they do that too every once in a while, and you have a fish fry, or I guess you take these ones home, because a lot of us had questions about how they were able to catch these guys. Well, one, there's apparently been a history of which, there's a lot of people that bitch and complain about guys that do win tournaments. That does happen, and people that legitimately win, and there's just people that are just butthurt about it. But in this case, some of those gripes are legit when they come up. And apparently these guys have been asked, or they've had some issues in the past with people coming and questioning their weights. And I guess in this one, from what I hear, of course, we'll see what their actual real story is that people were coming in with like-sized fish, which, like if you come in there on a certain body of water, somebody weighs a 5-pound, whatever, bass or whatever, and you look at your bass, and you're like, oh, well, mine's about 5 pounds then, because it's in general, bass in certain bodies of water are built the same way, and it's the same way with walleye, I'd imagine. So the people are looking at these fish like I weighed in something very similar, and somehow these guys are like pounds above my sack. And so it was brought up, and finally they actually cut these things open. If you go watch the video, I'm not going to put it up here because there's a lot of cursing, justifiably so. I'm surprised the guys made it out there without getting their teeth knocked in. And I wouldn't fault anybody for actually doing it, because you're talking about a lot of time and effort and money that people put into these things, and to have somebody just steal it, essentially. I don't know how they made it out, especially in a group where there's people just egging each other on. And you can hear in the video, they're just cussing these guys out. They can't believe it, which, like I said, justifiably so. These guys are scum. And hopefully they'll have to face justice in the criminal system. But anyway, they cut these things open, and they're pulling out big weights. Ounces, I don't even know. They look like 5-ounce weights to me. But they could be bigger. I don't know. They're just throwing them in the little bucket there. And then they're pulling out fillets, which, excuse me, I know a lot of people had questions about the fillet thing, like why are they putting in walleye fillets? And I was reading something about it, that they've caught other cheaters doing something similar, and it was that they'd stop them from possibly regurgitating the weights out, which that to me is like, that's a lot of thinking about how you're cheating. Or maybe they have that tells me you didn't just cheat. This isn't probably the first time you've cheated. This is probably a systemic thing for both of these guys. So anyway, they pull the weights out, they cut them, and I mean, people are just disgusted. You can hear the other anglers, rightfully so. I'm surprised that these guys stuck around, to be totally honest, when you're caught that blatantly red-handed. I was expecting a runner. I was expecting them to run from the video, hop in the truck, and get out of there. Excuse me, allergies. But anyway, the last I seen that they were actually caught, I mean, there was actually authorities there, and they'll be at least charged with probably fraud and there's probably some other statutes they can be hit with, hopefully so. I'd imagine they're being expelled from and banned from all tournament organizations. Now, the thing is with this at such a high level, it brings into question certain things about tournament. It's going to be a stain on them, and it almost necessitates some kind of change in some of the weigh-ins. I hope it doesn't. I'd like to think that the angling community is full of people that have at least the integrity and the ability to compete honorably against each other. Like I've mentioned during the post-shade thing, there's people throwing rocks and stuff there. But and I think I mentioned when I was younger, hearing about people cutting lines at night. So the unfortunate thing is there's always 10% of people that are just going to do whatever they can, are going to be nefarious, are going to be willing to compromise their own integrity, or if they even had any to begin with, and in order to win money, essentially get recognition. So I don't know what the right answer is to do. I know that, like, from when I was last year when I fished with the MPFL, I didn't feel any of those vibes that there was anybody that was nefarious. And I know people have their issues with that, that league, since there's no real qualification. But I will say this, on the back end, they do a qualification based on character. They look at people and interview them. So I never had a question about those, because I have had questions in other tournaments. There are people that do weird things, or they do things that are maybe not even against the rules, but they're just unethical. And that's a whole nother issue. There was something else I was going to get into this, because this brings up another topic, and I've lost it for the time being. I'll bring up in a different video, but this thing, it makes you question a lot of things. You wonder now about the ramifications of other tournaments these guys have had or been in. How much money have they really stolen from everybody? I mean, can you prove these other ones? Probably not, but it's happened. You can prove this one. It was a big one. Oh, that was the other thing. So last thing, and this is a big deal, especially when there's so many people trying to become professional anglers, and they're all trying to build audiences. They're all trying to sell themselves. They're all trying to win those sponsored dollars that are so critical in being a professional angler. These guys here, I don't know what their affiliation were with these, if those were actual sponsors on their jersey. I'm assuming they were, because I think these guys were fairly prevalent. I think they had a Ranger and a few other things. What does this do to the sponsorship aspect for the professional angler? What does something like this do? Does it make it that much harder? Do you see sponsors tightening up their requirements, or maybe even slimming down their pro staffs over this kind of thing? Because it's an image issue as well. It's like, you can't just now willy-nilly just give out sponsorship dollars to people, even if they do good at tournaments. You almost have to have you have to do more due diligence in who you back. I think I think that's an interesting conversation to have when it comes to on that and the business side of this, and what's coming out of this cheating scandal, out of these scandals, is, does the business side of this thing really tighten up? I'm not talking about from an economics perspective. I'm talking about it from an ethical perspective, and who throws their money where and who backs who at this point, because you don't want to be tied in with these guys, which even if they weren't sponsored by like Ranger, if they're just doing it, they have a Ranger boat and they're just doing it for the, the payback, they win. It in some way affiliates Ranger with this, not in a criminal perspective, not at all, but in just a marketplace perspective. So from that view of it, from the company's view, do they continue these programs, or do they look back and kind of reevaluate their payback programs, whether it be for owners or for or actual sponsor dollars? And I wouldn't be surprised if that comes up in some meetings, that they have to be a little more scrupulous about who they are giving money to and who they are backing, who are they putting on their little posters or whatever, the case may be, having at shows. And it's sad to say that I wouldn't blame them if they did. It's sad to say the sport's gone to where it has, right? We've endured some cheating scandals, and usually it's because it's at such a low level and people police themselves. But something at this level, and like the U.S. Open one, I mean, we got through that, but this one is huge. And with social media being able to really paint this everywhere and making these guys famous, rightfully so. I mean, this is unheard of, and we kind of police our own in the angling community a little bit with the directors. So I hope we get through this black eye, because this doesn't just affect walleye fishermen. Don't think, if you're a bass fisherman like me, this is not just affecting walleye dudes. This thing is an eye on all tournament fishing, because you got bass, and then walleye is probably the second biggest one for us in the States. And tournament of that level, it reflects back on us. In fact, most of the guys I see posting this or watching this are bass guys that are watching it. A lot of my walleye guy friends, I haven't seen anything from them. I've seen very little. But anyway, I appreciate you guys viewing this. Like, subscribe if you would. I'll talk to you later. Hopefully get some fishing videos out and not have to talk about all this controversial stuff. Peace.